So a lot of my work is for a core audience. Now, brands might want to reach outside of the core to attract people into the industry. That's fine. But my shot needs to pass the test for a core enthusiast, a core fan. And like I said before, like, I don't want to post a picture if the lean's not right, the rider's style's not right, it was mistimed, the angle's wrong, the eyes are looking in the wrong place in the corner. Already we're lucky we're working with professional athletes, most of our shots.
Movement. Branding for the bike industry. Together with thought leaders of our industry and branding specialists, we're discussing the art of emotional brand building. For this episode, I sat down with Sven Martin, one of mountain bike's most influential photographers. Before Sven ever became an action sports photographer, he'd already lived various disciplines from the inside. First as a pro skater, and later as a World Cup downhill racer. He grew up between South Africa and Southern California, experienced the 90s skate scene firsthand, shot with some of the biggest names in skate and mountain bike, and worked for Thrasher and Transworld magazine, before moving fully into mountain bike photography. Maybe that's also why he's one of the defining visual voices in World Cup downhill and mountain bike today. We talk about his life between the Western Cape, New Zealand, and his race season base in Italy. We dive into what makes good, honest storytelling in cycling, and what he feels is missing in a lot of brand work today. We also do a little bit of nerd talk about the new DH World Cup format, Discovery versus Red Bull, and about the new generation of riders such as Jackson Goldstone and Asa Vermette, who are pushing the level of the sport. So without further ado, here's Sven and me, Tim. Hi Sven, welcome to the Movement Podcast. We just tried to fix the door, had a coffee.
Yeah, life, the normal things in life that everyone deals with.
For sure. And funny enough, you just lived down the road from my parents-in-law. How'd you end up in Gordons Bay?
Well, I'll actually tell a funnier story so your listeners here. Another German photographer, Boris Bayer, which you guys might know, was visiting us a couple of years ago. And he's on Instagram, and he's posting stories on Instagram from the view right here. And literally he's like, huh? And he sees had done the exact same thing from 2 houses up the road, same view, what are the chances? Like, you and Boris know each other, and then that happens. So full story, yeah, we are sitting together 2 years later.
Yes, exactly. Why was he down here back there? Was it filming, yeah?
Was
it Death Grip?
Just an off-season. Death Grip was going on at the same time, but he was literally here just on a holiday.
Okay.
He did a bit of surfing and get out of the winter, and quick flight from Munich or Frankfurt, so easy travels.
Mm-hmm. And you're obviously South African, but you're not originally from that area. So why do you pick this area as one of your home bases?
Basically, all the family, grandparents, aunts, uncles. My parents grew up in Cape Town. They moved to Johannesburg for work because it's a more business orientated, and my dad was in the recording industry, and the studios were up in Johannesburg. So I went to school there, but every holiday we would surf. So as soon as we finished school, they moved back. I was overseas in the US at the time, and then eventually when we came, we've been out of South Africa for like 20 years. And in the last 5 years since we've had a kid, our priority is to have the kid grow up amongst her grandparents and aunts and uncles and stuff. So be as much as part of their lives and her life. So now we're spending more time in South Africa again. It used to be just 3-4 weeks to visit family, and now we're staying here 3 or 4 months, and then a couple of months in New Zealand, and then 6 months in Europe.
Mm-hmm. So you're basically spending half the year on the road covering the World Cups and multiple other mountain biking events.
Yeah.
So how does this work with the family? Will they always follow you?
It's for now, and before Ziggy has to go to school full time, it's working, and it's a nice way of bringing up a family. So we only really, Uncle and Ziggy travel with me within Europe, any events we can drive to mostly. So as soon as if you have to go to Poland or Fort William or somewhere further afield, then she stays. Then they stay in Italy. We have a house in Italy, so we have a base in between events.
Molina, right?
Yeah, Molini. Just basically, oh man, it's I always going. You ask one question, but all our life choices are based, where we want to live, are based around the things we want to do. In South Africa, it's around family and surfing, but then we moved to New Zealand primarily because where we were living in Oregon at the time, the winters were long and the riding wasn't so good, so we moved literally where's the best riding and sun in the off season, and that was New Zealand. We went to Australia, New Zealand, we settled on New Zealand. And Malini, coming back to Malini, is when we needed a base in Europe for spending so many years there for like 6-7 months at a time. We just basically wanted to choose the best riding in Europe. And our kind of riding is not so much chairlift, it's more like natural trail riding, enduro, I guess. And it needed to be close to an airport and good shoulder seasons. Early season, late season, need to have good weather and sun. And so we chose Malini in Liguria, just across, like an hour to Nice airport, an hour to Finale. So it's right on the Ligurian coastline in the
there's
valleys.
different Molinas, because there's also Molina which is very close to Lago di Garda.
Yes, and
Just
people
north of
have
Verona.
accidentally driven there thinking they were visiting us. And
I see.
they were like 6 hours away when they got there.
Okay. Yeah. Good that I've asked. So early in life, you were living in South California, and you like it.
Yeah.
I heard in one interview you said that this would be like your favorite spot to live in always. So now it has changed a lot.
So, like, I guess in life there's different phases and different things which are important at different ages. Now, me as a skateboarder coming out of South Africa and in the whole skate and surf industry for many years, like, if you want to make it as a skateboarder, whether it be in business or skateboarding, back then in the 90s, California, Southern California was the headquarters of everything. And it is, so that was, now things have become more globalized. You can do that anywhere. But then there's like, you pretty much had to go there. So growing up in our 20s and early 30s, like Southern California, for what we wanted out of life was perfect. You overlook the things like traffic and overcrowding, and back then we thought like long trails were like 1 minute long and like 200 meter vertical drop in Laguna Beach. But now we're riding 10 kilometers long with 2,000 meter drop, in Malini and in New Zealand. So it's just really like phases of your life, what's important to you, and we, instead of compromising on life and lifestyle and choice, we literally have always moved where we think is best. And it's hard with visas and work permits, and
especially for South Africans.
So yeah, having a South African passport is not like having a European or an Australian, New Zealand or American passport. It's incredibly hard to travel. If you want to, say for instance, I had a South African passport and I needed to go to, someone say, can you be at a job next week or next month? It takes about 6 to 9 weeks to get an appointment at a consulate in South Africa, and then you wait another 2 to 3 weeks to get your visa approved mainly, and that's just for that specific country or Schengen zone. But now so you can't do any last minute jobs, and in this industry nearly everything is a last minute job. And the same for races. And then if you're needing to then add on a trip to UK or America, you would have to go back to South Africa to reapply, wait that long period. So it's incredibly hard. Anyone, and there's quite a few guys in the bike industry, in the motorcycle industry, the surf industry, that have, it's a struggle. You have 2 passports and you try to do some things that are gray area, but luckily we stayed in the US long enough and got our US passports. So now we travel partly on that or mostly on that and a little bit on the South African one. And so don't take your freedom for travel granted if you're listening from Europe or any of those other countries.
No, definitely not. Also, I know that from my wife during COVID, this was hectic. My wife's also South African, has a South African passport. Yeah. That was, very interesting.
Funny enough, we couldn't even come back to South Africa, even though we were South African, but because we weren't residents, they wouldn't even allow us to come back. So COVID, everyone has a crazy story.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So the 90s, California, skateboarding, that was your thing. So have you been a skateboarder before you were a photographer, or was it the other way around? Tell us a little bit how you picked up the camera.
Yeah. So there wasn't a time where I remember picking up a camera. It was always in my hands and part of our family holidays. And because we were living up in Johannesburg, we went to the bush a lot. So game reserves, which are to get perspective, like a game reserve is like the size of a small country in Europe. It's the animals are free to roam everywhere. It's proper wild. You stay in either bush camps with no fences or sometimes with fences. But it's not like a zoo, so it's proper in their natural environment, like I say, bigger than a small, the size of Switzerland is the size of a game reserve in South Africa. And my dad was a semi-professional photographer at the time, and he always had proper pro gear, and he would place it in, and he'd have multiple bodies, and he'd give us a camera, and we grew up learning, like, how to use the camera, how to composition.
You and your siblings?
My brother, yeah. So he was 3 years older, and then back then, I remember my dad would give us print film, and he'd be shooting slide. And my mom was also a kind of an avid photographer, not a professional, but she was all into composition and nature things. And my dad was into action and moments and, capturing a bit more exciting stuff. So I remember learning to manual focus and track on birds and antelope and lions and kills. And this is all, so... And then understanding the exposure and all the rest came, that was before the cameras even had P modes or aperture priority modes and stuff. So as it went, I just remember one shoot, I must have been like 14 or 15, that my dad gave us slide film at that time. And then I knew that I must have been like doing something right, because he wouldn't have wasted the money of slide film on me if he didn't think I was good enough. So when we got into skateboarding a few years later, it was a small scene and a new scene, like the second wave of skateboarding in South Africa. And there were surf mags that would sometimes put some skateboard articles.
Would skateboarding arrive here before apartheid already, or was it only after apartheid?
I mean, it was here before and during and after, because there was a wave in the 70s before me. And then we started in the 80s, and apartheid ended 92 to 94, around there. In the 80s, it was during apartheid, so there were no real videos, and magazines were hard to get. And anyway, then skate videos only came out once a year, So we were kind of living in a microcosm, and the surf magazine would run some skate photos, but then my brother started the first skate magazine in South Africa. And when we would do trips and skating, we would basically self-document. He would shoot, but he was also a skater, so then I would shoot. And then when we would do tours or demos, if there wasn't a photographer, I always had cameras, and through my dad's stuff, so we'd just grab his cameras then, and then eventually I got my own setup. So it was always kind of like self-documenting. It's just kind of like same now, the skater, if you're part of a crew, the filmer and the photographer, of course, everything becomes more specialized and more professional, and then the film is just filming, the photographer's just shooting. But back then we would all shoot each other and film each other. I mean, I even forgot, like, I was a proper filmer. We'd have, I've got heaps and heaps of mini DV tapes and stuff. So, it was just self-documenting and covering the scene. And same thing when I got into mountain bike photography years later, living in the US. It was first just about shooting your scene and your smaller events, be it local, national, way before World Cups. A lot of people now, they just want to get into photography and shoot World Cups or shoot big events and stuff. But, just first fall in love with photography, and then with your passion of the sport, and worry about the work side of it later, or maybe it never has to become work, it just.
You need to know especially with these sports like mountain biking and skateboarding, you kind of need to know how to capture the right moment. What is the right moment also in the sport? If you don't know the sport, then you don't know when a certain move in biking looks good, which angle looks good. And these kind of things. And skateboarding is the same thing.
Exactly.
So were you a professional photographer already during that skateboarding phase, or were you was it more like a hobby?
No, I was, I guess, I was first trying to make it as a professional skateboarder was my first priority. And then living in the US, this is 95, 98, around there. In 98, when we went back to live full-time, I was, at that point, I think I got a visa as a professional photographer, because I'd done lots of work around photography, but I was still trying to make it as a skateboarder. but then through various injuries, I just switched to like trying to focus on it to be a photographer. So I work for Thrasher magazine. There was a big Red Bull demo here this weekend. I don't know if you saw this Red Bull skate demo. So Ryan Scheckler and Jamie Foy and Zion Wright, all of those guys came out.
We're in Cape Town? Or?
In Cape Town, yeah. And the funny thing is, like, I literally shot Ryan Scheckler in like the early 2000s for World. I was shooting for World Industries then, and
I saw him in Escondido skate park when he was very tiny with his brother together.
So he was, So he was very tiny when I shot him then. So it's crazy that he became who he is and still doing it in here in South Africa. So yeah, I guess skateboarding, like it really took off, and I would do like 10, 12 stair rails, just like lip slides and Smiths and Feebles. But that was the era when people were starting to do it switch or nollie on or flip on. And then it became like, I couldn't keep, I was a good top skater in South Africa, but a very mid-pack skater in California. So, then same thing, almost as my dad, I used to shoot for Thrasher or submit independently to a couple of Transworld Thrasher. And then eventually I also knew, just like how my dad gave me slide film, at some point Mike Burnett, the editor of Thrasher, he just started sending me film, like just heaps of slide and rolls of black and white film. And then he would say, I'll send you the film, you just send it back, don't even process it. So then you don't even know what you're getting. Like now, and you don't know, obviously you know in your head what you're getting because you've worked it out. But I wouldn't see my shots. I wouldn't see what I shot sometimes until it was in the magazine. And if you're shooting sequences and the guy's not landing it, you just don't hand that roll of film in. But yeah, so it was interesting then to, then that's how I sort of came to shoot for Thrasher. And again, documenting where I was living, because Thrasher was a very San Francisco-based magazine, a lot of NorCal, and they were wanting to do more work in Central and Southern California where I was living. So I would shoot all sorts of stuff, shot a lot with, all the top skaters around at the time. But and in that time is kind of when Anka got into mountain biking, and I was very, I never told my skateboard friends I was going mountain biking, because it was when mountain biking was a very weird phase, and downhill was kind of finding its roots. Palmer was eventually making downhill and mountain biking look cool, but and until then it was pretty dorky and stuff. So so it
was the skin suit times and full face helmets with no visors and stuff like that.
Yeah. So but then I got into it, early 2000s, kind of slowly weaned off skateboarding because I was spending more time around mountain biking, and then kind of the exact same path, mountain bike professionally, and then started shooting professionally because it was more better suited to me.
You were racing mountain bikes?
Yeah, I raced from like 2000 to 2007, or 2001 to 2007.
Which team were you on?
So we were on a local team, like it was Honda, or was Turner bicycles, and then eventually we got Honda as a sponsor, and then towards the end it was sort of I was helped run the team, and it was Iron Horse Bikes, Honda Automotive, and SRAM were our main sponsors, and then lots of other smaller sponsors. So it was I guess first it was like the Honda Turner team, and then it became the Honda Iron Horse team, I guess. So we had like Andrew Neathling rode for me, Duncan Riffle rode for me.
So you were the team manager?
Team manager, not so much owner, because there was no formal structure on the team. It was very much sort of like a privateer team. We looked good, but we were punching above our weight. We would race all the US stuff, all the Norbers, which were as big as World Cups. And then if we needed, we'd get Andrew Neathling to some World Cups and Duncan Riffle, and we'll all go to World Champs and stuff. So yeah, it was good times, putting together the teams and just to deal, I mean, just with say 15 different sponsors, and you had to have your bikes built by Sea Otter. Somehow we always pulled it off. I mean, we were building wheels, we had a big team, 6 riders, and Sea Otter, you'd race slalom and downhill. So you got 12 bikes, which is 24 wheels, but the rims and the hubs from Hadley and the rims from Mavic would only come 2 days before, and then the wheel build, and then the mechanics were killing themselves building 24 wheels before Sea Otter. And But somehow we always like showed up and we always looked super pro. There were like top pro teams that didn't have the right bikes because they hadn't received all the parts because the bike industry was always late. So we always looked way proer than we were. But we got good results. We beat Greg Menard, who was sponsored by Honda G-Cross, the real Honda Racing. And our little Honda team.
Before it was the Honda bike that he was riding.
No, he was on the proper Honda bike.
On the Honda,
so
okay,
like 2005 or 6,
yeah,
with
it was
Andrew
that time.
Neathling.
Yes. The all silver bike, the old funny looking bike.
Our little Honda team, Andrew Neathling, he won the big Norba in Idaho, and Greg got second. So it was pretty cool. And the whole, I remember all the Japanese engineers from Honda Racing were there. And they couldn't believe, like, it's not possible. We've put in like millions or hundreds of thousands, probably millions into this program, and our little team operating on 30,000 beat the big team, and they didn't know how it was possible. But yeah, it was. So
yeah, there was different times.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still you can still do it if you have the right combination of people, and now all the bikes are good. So there's still a couple of new riders that have come up like that. It's a bit harder now as the sport's becoming very professional, but we've
especially with the new World Cup format. We can
exactly it's hard to break in, but you can get noticed and make it onto one of those bigger teams. Yeah.
So I have all these old Dirt Magazine DVDs and all these old what's that called, all the Clay Porter films. Would I find coverage of you on one of those films?
Either, I forget if it's Hypnosis or Synopsis. I have a part in it. Which is filmed literally. I was working in the bike, like that's how we film stuff. We filmed it in one afternoon after work, and I remember being upset because like I'd worked all day, got out of work early, like at 4, and then only had like literally 4 hours to film before it was pitch dark, and those guys like got there an hour late, and then I got a flat on the first shot. The first shot we did, I get my bike all ready for the shooting, and I put new brake pads in and forgot to bed them in, and I went as fast as I could into this turn.
Okay.
You know what? That means the cleaners are here, which are not meant to be here this early. Okay, so Uncle said it was her, which is good news because then we can carry on. This is the reality of South Africa. We can hopefully edit it.
For our listeners, alarms go off in South Africa every now and then.
Yeah, that was a false alarm. Yeah, Clay Porter was actually living with me then. We were living in Laguna Beach, and he was like super nerd and had left home and was basically wanted to make mountain bike films, and he lived in Southern California with us, and then he would film with like the Mad Cats, so that would have been like Sam Hill and Nathan Rennie and Bryn Atkinson and all of them. Yeah, so I have a small part in one of Clay's films, and then the next year I had a part, just interviews, and I had like a neck brace on because I'd broken my neck that year. So I was like set.
Oh shit, man.
Yeah, that was 2006 or something, 2005. It's 2005 era, yeah. Yeah, so now Clay...
Was this the reason you stopped riding bikes and then go more into photography, or you kept riding after that crash?
So when you get injured, and I actually just messaged Fabian Burrell yesterday. This
shame what happened to him.
Yeah, so with Fabian, he's like so strong mentally and physically. Even though he's older and retired from pro racing, he's leaner and fitter and stronger than every rider.
You can see he's an athlete by heart, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things as an athlete, and you want to have a goal. What you're coming back for? What is the reason you want to come back? And you set yourself a date and a target. And so even though I had broke my neck, it got fused and was in a dangerous position. I did want to feel normal and rehab 100%, and I broke my neck in July and was racing Pro Daniel again at Seattle the next year, so April. And then I raced the rest of the season, did world champs and everything, but that was right at the time anyway where I was starting to make a bit of money shooting bikes and, qualifying for World Cups, but was doing it for the passion, not for any results or anything, and trying to just, you always are searching for a run that you're happy with, and it doesn't matter if I got like 30th or 60th. If I was happy, I would be happy, So I got a couple of top 30s at World Cups, and then like the skateboarding thing kind of took off because I was shooting World Cups and riding in them. I would just shoot a whole article. I would qualify 60th, do my race run, and then I had like run to the car, had 50 guys to shoot, the last 50 guys, and then I would literally run around all parts of near the end of the track. And so I would shoot my whole week of World Cups. I would shoot in like an hour when the last 50 guys came down. So, and then I would shoot four cross because I could shoot practice and I wasn't racing four cross. So, yeah, but magazines only needed a certain amount of photos, and the race photos are kind of the most important ones. But it's funny now because we shoot like thousands of photos on track walk day and practice, and everything seems so important, and don't miss a shot because of all your social media and all the various client and needs. The output per day, is astronomical, where there I just needed 10 good shots for a week, So back then it was fine. I could do it. But then, as you specialize, you just need to spend more time with everything. And I stopped racing, and literally 2008 was the first year I shot every World Cup, and pretty much shot every World Cup since then, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you mentioning your work at the World Cup. So this is also what you're mainly known for. I would say the work that you do on the race coverage, the storytelling work that you do. But you also shoot campaigns for brands. You recently been with Max, friend of mine from Essen, who works for SRAM. You were shooting with him.
Yes.
Somewhere where was it? In Liguria?
Actually, where I live. Yeah.
Where you live.
Yeah.
So which side of your job gives you more satisfaction? Is it more like the storytelling side, or is it more the brand campaign side?
So I had this talk with Max. They were very, when you do commercial shoot, obviously they have a lot of direction and what they want and what they're trying to show and everything. But even with the SRAM job, and was with Nuke Proof as well, they relaunching into the market. So although they had specific needs for placeholders and website and down the line, I'm like, well, we have this location and we have the days and the light and the terrain. I'm still going to do some storytelling out of that. And every job, although it might be an individual photo used, there can be storytelling within a single photo if you visualize or shoot it a certain way. But even then, I do like to have the storytelling on a commercial job, because these days things get repackaged so many different ways. There might be, back there you're shooting for an ad or a catalog or whatever, but when you break things down into reels or into stories, there's the photography's, like I said, repackaged so many different ways. You got to have storytelling. You're allowing it to live in a lot of different spaces and a lot of different outlets. So even when I'm shooting World Cups, there's a commercial side to it, because certain clients are wanting their, SRAM, I've got a new downhill drivetrain coming out, so they definitely want
they brief you.
They definitely, they just want to have some shots, maybe more than usual on this, but then you're also not shooting to brief because you had a World Cup, so you want to do what captures the action best. But like I remember when Transmission came out and Nino won on one of his first times on the SRAM Transmission drivetrain. So then he won World Champs on, that's right, he had just won World Champs and Transmission came out that year. And so I had a lot of shots throughout the week for them, installing the parts and training and racing and it, winning action shots. But I wanted that shot of the bike so you can see it's just won the race, dirty. And I climbed under the fencing, and while he was doing his TV interview, literally I was lying on the floor shooting. So
up on the podium.
This is before the podium. This is in the back area. And they literally, the TV cameraman, and I'm like, I'd see where he's framed his shot. I'm lying on the floor shooting that. So I could see Nina getting interviewed with the Transmission, with the mud on it, with the podium in the background. And so there's storytelling in every shot. That's how I like to approach it. But going back to what do I prefer and what I'm known for. So the World Cups, is only 10 weeks. And if you add in enduro and you add in some crankworks or hard lines and natural selection, that's 20 odd weeks a year. There's another 30 weeks. So while at a World Cup, I might shoot 7,000 photos a day to get to deliver 300 that night. I also like doing the jobs if I do that, like a tourism job in New Zealand or a more creative campaign where you only need, I will shoot for 2 or 3 weeks and I only need like 3 shots. Or I'll shoot all day, but I only need 1 shot, and you'll shoot a couple 100. So it's, and that can be, I'm not known for that because you don't see that kind of work as much, but
when if you hand in pre-selections to your clients, would you leave all these like what you mentioned earlier, you would always add storytelling, even if it's a campaign, would you leave these shots in the pre-selection you send to the client, or would you only send those pictures that he asked you to deliver?
I'd rather over-deliver, and then they can also see, and then they can see for themselves and have their own ideas. Obviously, sometimes I'll break into different folders and give them, a very focused, because some clients only want to see 20 pictures or 50 pictures. Other clients want to see 300 pictures or whatever, So it's quite client and brief dependent. But with nearly all my clients, I've worked with them for over 10 years. Very seldom am I losing clients or gaining new ones, or if you gain new ones, I really have to. It's tough to gain new ones when you're working at capacity, at least at World Cup sort of client photography. But so I would say I over deliver more than I need to, but it also is tricky where a general, say for instance the World Cup team, within that team, and if there's different rights to a job, sometimes you're just shooting for the team, and sometimes the team is owned by the bike company, the frame, whether it be Santa Cruz or Commensal or whatever. Other times the team, like for instance for Santa Cruz Bicycles own the team. For Commensal, Riding Addiction own the team. But then if you're providing all their co-sponsors photos, then you're each there's 10, 15 co-sponsors. So, and then within each team you got, say, 6 riders. So you got to think each day, okay, so there's these 10 companies that need to get shots each day and each weekend, and then these 6 riders, and you kind of want to tell a story of each rider. So the juniors are warming up in the morning. I'm running between 3 pits, getting the juniors and the women warming up, and then making sure I get a few Mako shots or a few PD's product shopped on the Santa Cruz. And then at the end of the day, so you're literally telling a story for each team, but within that team, you've got 6 different riders, and you're not their personal photographer, but you want them to have stuff that they would like to post. So over the weekend, you want to catch them doing other stuff, not just riding their bike. But then if you work for a couple of teams, and then there's a couple of riders, so you're shooting a lot. And then even as the teams get bigger, they have more riders, and then they're getting more shots, and they have more sponsors, and they pressure to give their sponsors more shots to be used in socials. It was a little bit easier when there was just the main post Instagram, but now people are putting, like 30 photos a day on stories. So you got the main post, you got the stories, and then you got the commercial usage later in a smaller number. So you're telling all these micro stories, with, a bunch of different, so we're shooting a lot, and which means you're editing a lot, which means you're sleeping a little, because, on the hill from 8:30 to 5:30, and then you're editing from 6 till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, so it's, yeah. But that's just sort of the nature of the game. Before, back in the day when I started, I'd shoot slide film, and I would send it to GT, or I'd send it to Dirt Magazine. So you can sell that one photo once. Maybe you get the photos back, and you can, or you don't have time to get it drum scanned, so I don't have lots of copies of the photo. So basically you can make money once, maybe twice from a photo. Now you can be selling multiple photos, you basically essentially selling or delivering hundreds of photos every single day, and you're making much smaller amounts, but you move and adapt with the times, and you don't see it as some photographers hate that it's become like that, but it's also just, you stay relevant to the current media and how the media is consumed, you know.
Yes.
And you use it to your advantage, not your disadvantage. Yeah, it is more work and it takes more time, but this is how it is. There will be a kickback and things will change, and then there'll be something else, and people will consume less media, or maybe there'll be more media, you know. And now, even already, there's a shift. It's like the individual athletes, they're as important as the brands. Mm-hmm. You know, people aren't even following Vital or Pink Bike anymore to get their messages. They're not just following the teams, they're following the riders, Loic, Omri, Jackson. Those guys have the power. Mm. So although I'm getting paid by the brands, like the rider's also your client, because that's where people are seeing your shots.
Deflected, basically, and it's more. But it's also how media is consumed these days. People think it is more authentic if it comes from an individual rather than coming from a brand or a team in that respect. So when you're shooting, like you said, you're shooting for a team and you have all these different sponsors and sub-sponsors, and you have to provide photos. Do you then is each of those sponsors your client, or is the team the client? So you send in the pool and they will basically distribute the photos, or how does it work?
Bit of both. So they'll get, if they're paying sort of for all party rights, so all their named team sponsors, they're going to pay a little bit more than if I was just shooting the team or just shooting for Santa Cruz Bicycles, you know. But if Maxxis and Fox and Shimano want to use the shot, then Santa Cruz will pay me more, and they'll do that deal with their sponsors. You know, they will. Part of the deal with Shimano or Fox, I guess, is like you will get access to Sven's photos if you're paying us this much. Mm. So I'm just dealing with Santa Cruz. But then I do shoot for other brands, like a couple of clothing brands and eyewear brands and protection, shoes, pedals. So in that aspect, sort of if I shoot for Crank Brothers or Bale Helmets, I can spend more time and do a bunch more stuff and shoot to brief. Like if I'm shooting for co-sponsors, they won't necessarily hand me a brief because they're not the main client. If they need something shot very specific or a certain way or a large amount of deliveries, then they will sort of contract me directly. Or if they're releasing a new product and they need additional stuff. So it's a mixture. Some of the teams get all my photos for all but sometimes some of their partners can only use it for social images. So each deal is done differently and evolves and changes as the needs change. And talking about how the athletes who are becoming an important outlet, and this is what I said earlier about being part of the scene and being part of the crew and shooting skateboarding. You couldn't shoot skateboarding unless you were part of the posse. You can't just show up at some spot and kind of get poacher shots. You've got to be part of the group. And now also, you know, you can't just be a photographer shooting for a brand and not having close personal relationships with the riders, because ultimately you need to be working with them closer and you want to...
Especially if you want to get this footage that every people is interested in, behind the scenes kind of footage.
You want some intimate shots, and to get that you need to gain their trust and you're going to become friends with them. And even though I'll be friends with Loic and Jackson and they have this intense rivalry, you know, you build up trust where both of them can open to you. They don't feel like, oh, you're Jackson's photographer, or you. So you get, it's just something you're building relationships, and it's about relationships and about trust, and all of my companies I work for, it boils down to relationships. Yes, the work is important. You need to be able to deliver and have images that capture people's attention and all the rest. But I think that's the easy bit of it. You know, obviously you can get good, but so the relationships you built over the years, which is important, whether it be with the teams, the brands, the manufacturers, the riders. So I think that's probably like the most important thing of the business is relationships.
And it probably also is important because if you want to, you know, work independently and freely and don't want to be overly briefed, if people know what you will come up with and you know you have the trust, then they say, okay, Sven is there, doesn't need a brief. He just goes, he knows exactly what we need. Done.
It's interesting because sometimes, like I did a commercial job for Adidas eyewear, and I didn't deal with Adidas, I dealt with their agency. So it's a good job. As soon as you're dealing with the agency, you know already you can start charging more money because this is real world rates, not mountain bike photography rates. So they gave me this very specific brief, and I shot it, and then we reshot it, and I was like, just let me do. And they're like, no, this is exactly, you've got to go in line with the rest of our campaign. Now the next week, I did a shoot with the same rider. This is Justin Leov in New Zealand, and he was on Canyon, and I did a shoot for Canyon. Adidas were happy with their shots. They were shot to brief, and they in the end, everyone was happy, and I was like, but I said, let me, and they're like, no, don't stray from the brief. Don't stray from the brief. In the end, they saw my Canyon shots, and I just did what I wanted to, and I knew what would, at the location with the rider and his style, and what would work best with Justin in New Zealand, and how we do it and how we tell the story. And then they saw the Canyon shots, and they're like, can we get access to those? I'm like, but this is what I told you. I said, this is what I wanted to deliver. In the end, they basically, once Canyon had chosen their shots, they were okay with Adidas having some shots from their shoot. But it is good to know and work two briefs for some people, but also like they should, they often should give you space to also shoot things how you think or feel they should be shot. It's if you're not doing studio and controlled shoots, and you're in nature and you're in good or bad weather, and you have time constraints, then you have to shoot things a certain way. It's easy to take an amazing photo if you have sunrise or sunset on some crazy mountain. Those, I envy those guys sometimes, but I do get to do it the other 4 months. That's why I do the tourism jobs and stuff. And it's like, that's easy because everything is perfect, and you only have to shoot a couple of shots, and you only have to deliver a couple of shots. To get a good race shot or cover a good event shot, when you're shooting at an event you've been to 10 times, you've got terrible light, it's either raining, the light's wrong, the location's not ideal, the rider's wearing a jacket. Like, if you can make those shots look good, that's the hard bit. So I think with us mountain bike photographers, we have to work in the worst conditions where no normal photographer would want to work, so that when there is good conditions, then it's easy. We can smash the ball out the park. So that is a nice thing about event or mountain bike photography, because we've been forced to get good shots under sometimes the worst when you would never normally take out your camera, which allows you to understand light and work around it and shoot differently accordingly. And so it's been I think, this is maybe the best way to, if you're an up and coming photographer or filmmaker, don't just shoot on gold when you can control everything. Shoot when you can't control anything. And if you can get good stuff out of that, then you really will have it easy when you can control the variables.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very genuine storytelling then also, which is, it's like completely honest when you're on a race. And you, like, I remember last year's World Cup season, I don't know, of the 6 or 7 races, at least half of them was pissing with rain, wasn't it? Yeah. Like, so to get nice shots out of there is quite remarkable then. Yeah,
weather definitely. Sometimes the worst shooting conditions can give you the best shots, especially the really bad rain and mud. But then your cameras are like
so dramatic
borderline. You get the drama and roost flying everywhere and mud in people's faces in the cross country. And so, just dusty, dry. So you just try and make the best of any situation, and you shoot differently accordingly. And then at the same time, you're trying to think of multiple deliverables while also so I'm not giving the exact same shots to one client as to the other client, because they'll be running them the same day, and you don't want the same shot popping up in different feeds back to back. Sometimes it happens, it's unavoidable. It's always challenging, but it's also always different. And while it might be frustrating to go to Leogang for the 10th year in a row, or Scotland or Mont-Saint-Anne, we do get, we get different conditions every year. Some years are better than others, so it's hard. You can be frustrated, but every day of the job is different, even if I'm doing the same thing. So that's, I guess, why everyone's like, how long are you going to keep doing it for? Don't you get bored? Don't you get tired? Or like, I like racing, so every Sunday or Saturday I get that adrenaline. I get a high from the racing too, both capturing the racing and just witnessing it and making sure you capture it at the same time. So I'm a race nerd, passionate mountain biker, and so that doesn't. It can be challenging when you have a shit day at a location for the 10th year in a row, or you're trying to shoot something different, but it's also different every day. You're not going to a bank and you're not doing the same job. Nothing wrong with working in a bank, because it'd be nice to clock out at 5 o'clock and just do whatever you want. But it is nice to have something different every day of your life.
It's adventurous, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you look at the footage that's out there in the industry, and you are like so strongly about storytelling and stuff like that, do you feel like the industry is putting enough of the storytelling out there, or is it very like studio, very briefed stuff? How does it feel real, the footage that you see, or does it feel less real than it was?
It's tricky because there's so much content out there. So obviously a huge part of the storytelling is done, I wouldn't say better, but done more often these days with moving images and filmmaking. But even then, it's such a tricky balance. Do you do a documentary style that comes out a week or two later, or are you delivering 8 reels for the client or the writer? Are you doing weekend roundups? So all the filmmakers, and there's a bunch of amazing, you get more, say, there's always a few new photographers, but the young guys coming up are these days more likely to grab a video camera. And probably if I was starting now, that would probably be where you think there's more use of it. But luckily, I'm so busy as a photographer, I've never had to offer both, Yeah,
you've been there well established over the decades.
Yeah,
now.
Because really for me, I love like sort of directing all my friends that are filming, or if I'm hiring a filmer for the job, I love directing or producing. But I'm their worst nightmare, because I have my vision, but at the end of the day, it's all in the editing as well. So yeah, you've got to be a good filmmaker, but it's in the edits and how you envision the filmmaking. And so the question is like, do they do a good enough story? It's hard to say, because so much of what is done, if it doesn't capture your attention those first 3 seconds, it gets swiped. So then you have a bunch of clickbait stuff. And that's not great. I don't like that. But then you get like the Santa Cruz filmer and the Specialized filmer. You got like a couple of guys. I mean, there's a lot of, I don't want to even name names but there's a couple of like young guys that are doing amazing stuff. And I wouldn't say it's like too good for mountain bike, but they'll get swooped out of the mountain bike industry. They've been around a couple of years, so they handle the work. But they're almost like too good for mountain biking, and they're using this to hone their craft and do these crazy edits. And Dorian, the one French filmmaker, he works for Specialized, and he's doing stuff for fashion houses and stuff now. And
the Specialized stuff that they put out this year is
and Cole
cool.
For Santa Cruz and Louis Citadel, they're doing like incredible, like the craziest edit you'll see, and it's just track walk edit, We're getting cinematic on like finales in an ice rink, and then there's just, it's pretty cool, impressive to witness what they're doing. But like, I don't even have enough time to see. Some of my friends are the filmmakers. I literally don't have enough time to see their
watch all the stuff,
because there's so much out there. And then like now I can actually sit down and catch up with some World Cup stuff and see. Like I never even watch a race or a live feed, and now and then I will go and watch someone's final runs, to see what actually happened. I just see from the end of the track. So it's not, is it too much or too little? It seems like there's too much out there, but it is nice to see it packaged differently. And this is what I said, that you can have your sort of documentary, your long form, and then you can have that broken into sort of micro stories, and then reels. So they exist in 3 different places. And then what's happening now, some of the bigger teams, to now make that all usable by their co-sponsors and partners of the team. You have a person that's the link between the filmers and the photographers, and they the actual storytellers, or the the team managers, the marketing managers of the brands, the filmers and the photographers, they don't have enough time. They've all got stuff on their plate to also get the message out. So now they're hiring a third or fourth person that's the social media manager. And they are to me, almost like the most important piece of the puzzle, They are grabbing all my photos, the video, they're meshing them together, they're doing the reels, they doing all sorts of collages and scroll apps and slideshows and making it relevant. And then if Omri or Jackson crosses the line and wins, they have a shot from 2 days ago that works and it's already got the text built onto it. Those people, like that's, if I was a young person into media and racing and using their phones and then they're doing like little phone clips, like that's a growing position. That's probably a hugely important position, one where there's definitely space for more people like that. There's already sort of, I wouldn't say it's saturated with, there's enough filmers and photographers, but the main people have got the main clients. So there's always room to break in, but that's a multimedia sort of person that can do design on the go. But then, these filmers and the photographers, do you get creative satisfaction? Like just delivering a reel, but you consider yourself a filmmaker and your client just wants reels, so like with some trending song at the moment, So it's all about finding the balance, what you like to do, and I've found my balance, and which is why I'm still doing it. But then I will adapt and change and be part of other people's workflow and deliver according to their needs and work with the filmer, work separately sometimes, but we all work together. So just teamwork, really. You're part of the team of the race team, the media team, and then you're working for other things like coffee table books and some editorial and magazines that are out there. So there's so many different hats, whether you're a photographer or a filmer, that you never have one. Very rarely are you shooting a photo for one use. It's going 6 different ways. Yeah.
So now at these races, like maybe you can draw the picture a little bit for us. When you have all these different people jumping around these days with their phones, with their professional cameras, photographers, veterans like you, for instance, when they rock up, do people go on the side and say, hey, Sven Martin's coming, he owns the spot, he's getting front row.
No.
You have to fight for your spot, or how does that work?
I mean, the rule of thumb is if you're there first, then it's your spot, right?
Okay.
And if you've been doing it long enough, there is a way to work together. And if there's like 3 or 4 photographers and then someone wanders into the spot in the background and there's one guy that's just arriving and he's messing up 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people's shots, then obviously we can ask them to move, But you find your spot, and at some point you're no longer the only person in the spot, or sometimes you get to a spot you want to go to and there's already someone there, There's unfortunately on a 2-kilometer track, there's only you can get creative and do some weird and cool stuff from different stuff. But at the end of the day, some features on the track, depending on how the lighting is and what the action is, they just spots you're going to shoot. So a lot of times your shots at World Cup stuff will look quite similar to other people's shots. So the challenge is to do it slightly differently or work, sometimes you go into a spot but the light's not working, so you'll go back there the next day earlier or later. So no, there's no older or more established or more senior photographers. They get like, whether you're the first World Cup you've ever shot, if you're there, like that's your spot. You can tell, doesn't matter. You can tell me to move because I'm messing up your shot and you were already there. I might try to say, hey, it's better from over here. You should come here. But like ultimately, that's just sort of an unwritten rule. There's definitely no hierarchy, I would say.
But would they learn? Would they maybe like copy or like see what you do? Like for instance, like riders see which line is Jackson taking. Maybe would they maybe see, okay, Sven took a nice spot there, would they follow and say, okay, if he goes shoot a photo there, I go there too?
You can look at like the event photography from the year before and see what was in the Pink Bike report or the Photo Epic or whatever. But if they don't have their own vision, then they don't have passion for the craft, which is the photography. Sure. So if they're just trying to get good shots by copying other people, then it's not going to be creatively fulfilling. So then they're not going to be there long. They'll be a year or two, or like they're coming in to hustle, to try to get business or work or teams. But like, you know, it's those guys won't be around for a year or two. There's a couple of other guys that I've seen out there, and I'm seeing them now for the second and third year, and they, in their own spots, they're getting cool stuff, and they're getting different stuff, and you know that they'll be around because they're finding their own niche, so to speak. And it's always good to see. And then sometimes I'll be like, what the hell's that guy doing over there? And I'll go wander and have a look at his angle too. Like, it's just, it's human nature. So yeah, and there's definitely some spots that work better for filming, and there's some spots that work better for, and different times, like first practice run of the new course, like, you know, you don't want to go somewhere where they're going to stop. There's so many things which they subliminally, there's 1,000 different thoughts and decision-making processes going on, but it's just, you're doing it second nature, but I could actually write out why I'm doing something each time, but I'm doing it by second nature because I've been doing it so long, or you just know, or you have a feel, or there's another riding coming down and I'm like, ooh, this guy hits a corner like this, I'm going to shoot. For him, I'm going to shoot like this, but for this guy, I'm going to shoot the entry because he does it differently. Like, there's different people you shoot different ways at the same spot. So it's you definitely got to understand the sport and the rider and lines and how they develop and what will happen. Like, it's cool.
Science.
You said science. Yeah, it's like lad science. Like, there's a science to it, but then also you got to just be ready to freestyle as well.
And like watching the waves and picking the right waves, something like that. Maybe also you need to understand the ocean in order to
pedal to the right spot.
Right spot, and
then get waves among 10 people that are also wanting the same wave.
Exactly.
It's a very good. That's a good. I'm going to use this one in photography. I like that. I like it.
All right, let's talk a little bit about technologies these days and AI. So, do you see AI as a threat to your job at the moment, or is it more like, do you see it more as an enhancement?
I would say it'll be a tool, perhaps, and not so much for me. For I guess for people working in agencies and production houses, more so for them, but because, at least for the action images, let's talk about my action images. With skateboarding, surfing, snowboarding, all the action sports and mountain biking, where it's very, very, very much about technique, style, and timing. AI is never going to get that right. Yeah, they can do a cool product shot. Your bike shoot in the mountains could be done on the North Pole in a ball of fire. But that's not what I do anyway. I'm shooting... some still images for those kind of campaigns, but when it comes down to action, we can't be replaced. So I'm not threatened by that at the moment. Things will evolve where already the moving images, you can pull screen grabs at a certain time, and sometimes it's good enough to be used as a photo, at least in social media anyway. So, that's more, I wouldn't say a threat or a replacement, but that's sort of where technology is heading. You can, while filming, shoot stills that exist on cameras. You can have the pre-capture so you don't miss stuff. There's lots of technology which you can use to help you as a tool. But with AI and action imagery, it's never going to get it right, and it'll be even goofier when it's video imagery. But where it could help in the future with a huge part of the workflow, which I describe, editing from 6 in the evening till 2, 3 in the morning. It's not there now. It already does. You can say it can learn your editing style. So there is a software out there. It can learn your editing style, because the thing is, I apply individual edits to every single image I take. I don't take my output and then apply a filter or a preset and then hit go. Or even if I have 10 shots from the same corner on the same light, I'm still slightly changing the crop and the light. I'm spending time on every single image.
Do you do it all by yourself? You also bring an assistant sometimes?
It would be lovely, but you would have to find someone that's just willing to work from like 6 till... To be honest, there's not enough money to have a full-time assistant that's good enough or edit to your style
Standards.
and standards. And if they are good enough, then they probably be working for themselves already and not be working as an assistant. If there's interns willing to edit for me, but then again, it's not your work. So part of the editing is part of my photo. And I try do most of my edits just with what we'll say darkroom edits. I'm not using crazy masks, and I'm just doing edits that you would do in the darkroom per se. They call it darkroom edits because it's changing, some contrast and some highlights and lowlights, and the camera as a raw image shoots a very flat profile, so it allows you a lot of latitude. But I'm not sort of retouching. Now and then we will. Depends if it's for editorial. I'm not going to remove a pole or a marshal out the shot because editorial, it's just like if you're shooting for news, you don't alter the image. It's actually not allowed if you're working for certain agencies or certain outlets or even for like Red Bull. You can't doctor or Photoshop or an image. If I'm shooting for a client and there's a distracting pole, maybe I'll clone that pole out. So it depends also what what we're shooting for. But yeah, the AI workflow, there is software now that can learn. It can basically, you can load your Lightroom catalog and it'll learn what you did for each instance, each image, and it will do their edit. And I think there's like a 25 cents a photo. But the problem is then you're uploading and you need to have high capacity upload and download, or you don't have to upload the full RAWs. You're uploading proxy images and everything. But then and you would still probably need, I have not used this or experimented, but then you probably need to then look at each thing, and it could have done the majority of the work. But then it's also something I want to be in control of, at least for now. It's part of my workflow. Yeah, but I foresee AI as being more a tool you can use in that sort of capacity.
Will you use it though?
I don't currently use it, but it's like saying like I don't like Instagram, and then the whole of our business is on Instagram, like at some point, I don't want to be caught here 5 years. Hey, remember when you said you'll never use AI and now you're using AI for editing? We'll see how it evolves, Yeah, I'm not worried about it now. I'm keeping my eye on it, I would say. And if it could save me time for a lot of work, but it's still my work, then perhaps. But not in terms of creating images and all the rest. And then in that case, then it's when I've delivered the image to a client for commercial work, then essentially they can do whatever they want. Then it's for their designers and stuff to work for. If you're a small agency offering like photo and video and design, then yeah, I'm sure you'd be using AI. But I'm not needing to do it now. Maybe I should use it to answer some emails because I'm bad at that.
So, people are listening to AI music now, but I think also when it comes to, for instance, World Cup coverage, whether it be moving images or stills, I think, I don't know, maybe our society changes, but I can't imagine that people would be interested in watching an action movie that's completely made with AI, where there is no real writer actually writing. Everything is made. So this is something that I don't think will ever be the case. People still want to see the genuine, real, human-made action, and they would not like, unless it's maybe a commercial or something like that, but if they want to see like, okay, Red Bull Rampage, just imagine this would just be an AI event.
It could be 200 feet drops, yeah.
Exactly.
But you see, this is where it comes down to also core. I consider mountain bike photography, or at least the space I'm operating in is very niched. So a lot of my work is for a core audience. Now, brands might want to reach outside of the core to attract people into the industry. That's fine. But my shot needs to pass the test for a core enthusiast, a core fan. And like I said before, like, I don't want to post a picture if the lean's not right, the rider's style's not right, it was mistimed, the angle's wrong, the eyes are looking in the wrong place in the corner. Already we're lucky we're working with professional athletes, most of our shots, so that helps with that. But when you're shooting for the core, I don't think AI, at least not for the near future, will but if you're shooting for the mass, and like you said, they're seeing something they don't understand anyway, and they wouldn't know a good corner, a bad corner, a big jump or a huge jump, then AI and Hollywood, it would exist in that space. Yeah, and and you're using AI in video editing more than like to add effects and all the rest. But photography, as far as it's got, I'm still shooting the photos to some degree like I shot when I was shooting the animals when I was 10, 12, 13 years old with film camera. That is a goal, to try edit as little as possible. For sure, we're spending a bit of time on every image, but I also would feel comfortable giving the raw of that image out. And plus, if I get it mostly exactly how I want it correct in camera, it just means less time for me to edit those 700-800 shots. If I'm shooting 7,000, I'm editing 700, So, yeah. But then cameras, we're talking about technology, cameras are now doing, you would shoot 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 frames a second, and only a few of those frames would be usable. And now you can shoot up to 40 frames a second, and now nearly all of those frames are usable. So it takes you much longer to choose the exact one, or you're editing 2 or 3 because they're all good. And so, yeah, as much as technology helps you get, lowers the barriers to entry, allows newcomers or amateurs to get cutting edge photos that used to be hard to get. It eases the barriers to entry, but then it also adds more time in our day because we have like more choice, Sure. Or before it would be a skill to time someone in slopestyle, to get like a suicide at the perfect timing, or a knack or whatever. And now you can shoot 40 frames a second, but I still try to shoot with, the correct frame in mind. But
since you are so deep in the World Cup scene, I would like to talk to you a little bit about the World Cup in general. So what is your honest take on the new World Cup format?
There's a lot of things I agree with, and then there's a few things, the way they implement some of the changes, I disagree with. The vision of keeping it very elitist and like, I don't want to use the Formula One analogy, but we don't have 20 bikes on the same track at the same time. So there isn't the need to keep the numbers low like there are in some sports. For instance, especially now with all the new fast juniors coming up, and then you only have 30 people making the final. And of those 30 people, nearly everyone is capable of getting a podium or a top 10 time. And then they say, but it makes the live feed more watchable. At the moment, those first riders, anyway, you're not seeing much of their runs. You're just seeing the last riders of the run. So even the winner, you might miss a lot of his run. There's nothing wrong with having 40 or 50 people, or let's just say 10 more riders, 40 people in the final. You're pre-recording anything anyway. You can have your little pre-game, all right, we're starting. This is the fastest time. So it didn't matter. So those earlier 10 riders, you don't have to show all their runs, but you can show the guy that's currently in the hot seat. This was his run, boom. This is who's coming, so you can keep the package still short and entertaining. I do understand that aspect of it. We don't have to have a 4-hour broadcast, but you're missing a lot of talent or a lot of stories of when you're not seeing your Jacksons or Omri or Loics like in a final, you'll lose a lot of your fan base, a lot of interest, and I do believe it was correct to get rid of protection. And Andrew Neethling and I spoke about the LCQ, this last chance qualifier, like they currently have changed to this year. We spoke about that for years. That's how they should have done it anyway. But also the other things with more like the way they've structured the points and the teams, and to be eligible for a World Cup entry, and not giving any points in qualifying, and only giving points for the first quali and not the second quali. You're really unnecessarily limiting a lot of people's careers or a lot of development paths, and there hasn't been a huge increase in other series like the IXS or Continental Series, like all this talk, well, nothing is happening with that. So I'm worried more about the long-term future of the sport, and also keeping things like, I don't want a rider to only make it because he was picked up at 17 years old by a big team, because then you only have a few people that are already at that level. What about, you know, the Ronan Dunns or the Andy Kolbs that developed, or the Benoit Coulange, you know, all World Cup winners that have just developed later. They would not be racing World Cups or get on a World Cup team on this current format. And these are some of the biggest stars of our sport. So there's way better ways of implementing some of the things. So yes, I'm for, they've raised the level of professionalism, the presentation of the sport, no more course tape, the moving images on the start-finish areas. But then also that's come at an expense at some of the venues. As a fan, a spectator at the venue, some of them are horrible. You can't be anywhere near the finish line. You've lost access to being near the track on a lot of important sections. You've pushed back way further than the B zone needs to be for no reason, in my opinion. Maybe it's, I don't know why, because you're losing, and that actually makes the live feed look bad because you don't have a lot of people next to the track. All the live feeds, all the fan engagement that they keep pushing to make the sport look amazing, like what we see in Leger and Mont-Saint-Anne, are actually things Warner Brothers Discovery don't want. They don't want anyone in the finish area. They don't want people near the track. But those events, the most viral... And
why? What is the reason they wouldn't want that? Why?
I don't know. They say for safety, they say for keep the cameras clear line of sight, they're flying drones a lot. There's a lot of reasons they give, but they can be implemented and done differently. I have photos from Fort William for over the years, and you just see the decline of space for spectators. Or at the venues, a lot of venues that used to charge low entries or no entry fee, it's now costing them so much to host a World Cup that they're having to charge entry fees. So you're losing some on-course fans because of that. But then they've also put the TV trucks in an area that fans used to take in some venues, not all venues. Some venues that are tucked away. So you've suddenly lost this area on one side of the track. And then they put the food tent. So it's a combination. It's not just Warner Bros. Discovery. Some organizers are better than others. And they put the food tent that you can't see the big screen so it's not thought out from a, you know, I'm very much for the on-course spectator. They need to have an experience as well. Yeah. You're already limiting to see that they can see 45 riders, 30 men, 15 women on race day, you know. So really, they're hardly seeing anybody on a finals day, whether it be Saturday or Sunday. So if you come out to watch a World Cup, say that Daniel races on the Saturday and you couldn't get work off Friday, because Friday is really the good day because there's lots of racing, lots of action, practice, full day, people going fast the whole time. But if you couldn't get there Friday, you came Saturday, you would be very underwhelmed by what you saw. You'd be a lot of waiting, not a lot of riding, and maybe you'd have a shit spectator area. So... and that's not all Warner Brothers Discovery. Some of it's the local organizer, but they've also been put under huge pressure because the costs are so high, or they have to host triples or doubles. So it's a big question, not a simple solution, but there's ways about implementing some of the changes they've done differently.
So how has this, because now the whole World Cup is more scattered over almost like a whole week, how has this this new system affected your work?
The schedule's roughly the same. World Champs is quite different and changes every year.
But there was the 2 qualifying days?
You have a little bit less practice, but then in some way having 2 qualifying, you do get guaranteed shots of a rider riding in the rainbow jersey, riding in the national sleeve, riding without a rain jacket. So, and it gets you a really race... Let's say...
More chances of getting real race coverage.
Exactly. Let's say your brand, say I'm shooting near the finish area on race day and Jackson Goldstone's in the rainbow jersey, but he looked shit on the jump, or the light was bad, or I had to be near the finish area in case he won and the real shot was higher up. I could shoot that other shot in quali or quali 2 if he didn't make quali 1. Hopefully he makes quali 1. So you're getting another chance, which we always had qualifying. So... But at the same respect, it's put pressure on the riders and the photographers. You're only essentially having a day and a half of practice, or a day and a couple of runs of practice. So you got, I wouldn't say less time, you just got to be more planned and more, But it makes it tough because then every run counts, as it always does. And when you're moving between spots, so you've got to have a very clear plan. And at some point you need to move, but then you're missing guys from the next wave of riders because you were waiting for riders that were at the end of the first wave of riders. And invariably you miss shots, which are clients, which is important, which is why we also work together, Boris and Sebastian and Kike and a couple of ours, where
You share the tasks?
yeah, we'll get our own shots, but sometimes after, if a canyon rider wins, then I will give a few extra shots to Boris if a SRAM rider wins. So we help each other. So a lot of shots which have my name in it might be Boris or Sebastian's, and vice versa. So
I didn't know that. That's cool.
yeah, because we are shooting a lot and we all have a high quality and we want to deliver certain shots, and some days you have bad days. Some days the rider stops in front of you 3 times or was wearing a jacket every shot, and you literally left with nothing, but you still want to deliver a shot. Boris would have been further down the course, the rider didn't stop, he'll give me a shot from that day. I said, hey, I know I missed Ronan, I don't have one shot of Ronan I need, or I missed Valley or whatever, so some days it works like that. And often if you start on a bad day on a rider, you'll actually something will happen every single run. Bernard would invariably stop in front of me every single practice run. I'll be so we work as a team. We're all independent and we're not really competition because we all have our own clients, but we all like to have the best shots of our clients. But if you have your best shot and it's not your client, we can share it as well.
Yeah. And of course, because you on race day and then on also qualifying days, you're always on the track, so you never really get to watch the live footage.
Yeah, watch bits of it sometimes in finals. Yeah,
but still I would like to know, what's your take on it? Would you still prefer if Red Bull would do the coverage, or are you happy with how Discovery is doing it these days?
See, I'm not watching the live feed at home, so I can't comment on the commentary. I know that's a big thing. But I do see a lot of the runs, sometimes nearly all of the runs, and a lot of it has evolved and can be better. But then obviously there's always something to that, whether it be Red Bull or Warner Brothers, they could always do some things better or worse. Sometimes the drone angle's too high, and then sometimes the POV angle, which Red Bull never did, like the following drone is amazing. Sometimes it would be better with a static camera. Sometimes Warner Brothers use those robot cameras that don't add much to the feed, but they are covering more of the course, nearly all of it for the last riders. But then, this is evolution. Would Red Bull have evolved with their coverage? Red Bull always wanted to do POV racing drones, but they were never allowed to by the UCI. But when Warner Brothers got Discovery, they became leverage. They were also essentially they became the governing body as well, and were able to make or affect changes to the rules and make course rules like that, or design tape courses according a certain way. So who's not to say that Red Bull's coverage wouldn't have evolved? I think what both people could be doing better is telling the stories now in between the races, or build up of the personalities profiles up until the seasons, or having continual coverage. Surely there's a market. They've had live feeds for 10, 12 weeks of the year. Surely they're going to be losing some audience, or surely there's some appetite for having weekly shows or bi-weekly shows. So yeah, that opportunity exists. I hope to see Red Bull step up some of their Crankworks live coverage in the downhill, but some of it wasn't great. Of course their hardlines and their rampages are amazing, and then there's events like Natural Selection which pop up, which do a different kind of delayed live coverage, which is good in certain instances as well. So but everyone's raising the game every year, whether it be Red Bull, whether it be Warner Brothers Discovery, whether it be filmers, photographers. So as long as the evolution is a forward, it's more the rules that change the nature and the future and the base and the development of the sport. I'm concerned about how the broadcast is looking, pretty good. It's just how the on-course viewer. I think there can be a better fan experience. There can be better fan interaction. There can be, but there's, they're doing signings, organized athlete signings. They're doing rider introductions. There's a lot of, I like, it's definitely evolved in a more professional, positive way. The subscription, what is hard is like I'm all over the world at different times, and there's no one. The first year they did it, I believe you could sign up X amount a month and you could watch it no matter where you were. You log in on your pass.
With a VPN, you can watch it from anywhere.
I guess I just need to become more. Yeah, it's just always hard, for people in different markets to be able to watch it. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think also like it got more professional, but I'm obviously like all the other. We don't have to open this bracket now, but of course we're all missing Rob Warner as a commentator, I would say.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why he was not like part of the development. I don't know. You probably have more insights.
I think they just needed to. It was a new everything. I think he was too closely associated with Red Bull. So even though he might have been the perfect person for it was a new change, a new direction to the sport. So that's perhaps why. It's always good when they have the injured riders drop in and be the expert commentators, but it'd be nice to have a more regular person. Like Gwyn's been good, G's been good, like everyone's been good when they've come on, but like it's good to have a permanent person in that position, that understands the sport and has that right mix,
Yeah, and has the vibe, you could just basically has this like he can draw you into the track basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be hell of a difficult. You've got like 3 minutes and you kind of commenting what's happening. You got to try. You're telling some backstory of the rider, and something's happening. Like it's got to be the hardest job for sure out there. And then that could, but like, and Warner had years and years, and if you listen to him in the early days, he was terrible. Like he was just screaming and drunk, which was awesome back in the free course days. But like. Even though he became very professional, but still kept the vibe. Kept the vibe.
Exactly.
That's what I say. But like I said, I've literally, other than run replays, I've not sat down and watched a full live feed. I've not been able to. So yeah.
Yeah, and talking about the riders, so the Jackson Goldstone second season now, he won 5 World Cups. He won the World Championships. Asa Vermette got better times in juniors than some elite men.
A couple of the juniors did that, yeah.
And the Arlen brothers maybe as well. Arlen Arlen brothers?
Yeah.
Alren.
There we go.
So how do the OGs like Loic Bruni, like Marie Piron and these people perceive this right now? Do they feel a little bit like it's kind of their time is running out, it's pretty much game over for them, or how is it? How do they feel about this?
I mean, the top guys are still, yes, they fast races, but they also have the full package. They have the mental game. Loic, Omri, Jackson, and while a lot of these juniors are super fast, and yeah, for sure, they've also developed the mental. They have wisdom and experience beyond the years because they are delivering on a consistent basis, Asa and the Alaran brothers. So they are not coming in like inexperienced or going to be weaker mentally. But, Gwyn came into the sport, everyone had to raise their game. Loic, Jackson, they've all come into the sport, everyone had to raise their game, whether it be style, technique, training, first, like everyone, it's always getting better and the times are always getting tighter, and now it's just happening younger and younger because the teams are needing to spot talent, and all of us, our age people, have got kids. So like before, they never grew up with their parents being riders. Now they grew up and their parents might have been like Masters World Champs or World Champs or top end riders, like the kids these days, their parents can do backflips and stuff. So it's like, of course, it's going to be better and better and better. And that's just the future in every sport, like skateboarding, surfing, like I think even more so in those sports, the young kids are better than the older kids, or older established pros. But, all those young fast juniors, none of them have had their one crazy big accident, the one big crash, that season ending or lose 6 months of the season. And unfortunately, When that
Only
happens,
Jackson on Hardline, right? He was out for quite a time.
And he came back still winning.
Yes.
But he's also reserved. He's not reckless. Ronan's no longer reckless. Amri's no longer reckless. And those used to be all parts of their styles, which is also what got them as many wins as they did, as quick as they did. So they've all learned. And all these kids are going to get that one big injury that'll slow their trajectory. Jordan had his big injury. It also slowed him up. Although he had his injury, he had some other mental issues. So, yeah, but that's also another reason why 30 people in the final, you already got 5 juniors that are probably going to qualify for the final next year.
Yes.
5 of this year's juniors next year will be taking 5 of those 20, 5 of those 30 spots. Which is why a couple of these top riders are now pushing for more riders in the finals. Before it was everyone else pushing, the top riders didn't care because we'll always be in the top 30, it's easy. Now there's a couple of those guys that didn't qualify as well. So it's interesting how it comes around. So I think that's, to be a more important thing is like, yeah, there are going to be new people and faster people. Yeah, the sport is cutthroat and stuff, but there's a reason for allowing more people in the final. And you can still do things to make the broadcast work. So all they have to do is raise their game and be confident what they're doing. And, Elmarie hates it, but he also loves it because he knows those 2 kids are on his team. And, you want to, it doesn't matter where you finish the World Cup, it does, but you also want to be the top guy on your team. So there's 2 races going on. You want to be fastest guy on the team and you want to be fastest guy in the World Cup,
True.
And it exists in every single team.
There's a lot of similarity to Formula One again. And,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've got a little bit more reason to. Their amount of zeros at the end of their paycheck, they definitely is very different to the mountain bikers. Yeah, it's just amazing what level of riders are coming through, especially this year. But you get it. It comes in waves. It's not every year like this. It's every couple of years you have a real strong crop. And then like next year we've got a couple of fast juniors that are still junior. But it's almost waves. Every 3 to 4 years you have this like freak talent, But it seems to be happening more and more, and waves are coming sooner and more frequent. And then it's the nature of the sport, They're growing up with all the things given to them, Like they're not just racing local. They've been groomed by these teams at a young age, and they coming up ready. Got the trainers, they've got the coaches, they've got the line coaches, they've got the
way more professional from very beginning already.
Which sucks in a way, but it's just the nature of all sports, And the first year junior, like I always say, like just go fast, have fun, ride your bike fast, get your wins. You're going to have tons of crashes, and don't worry about the overall. Try get the rainbow jersey and get World Cup wins. Second year junior, yeah, you can try get the title and try get, double up and get more wins and ride consistent. That's your learning path, Yeah, keep it fun the first year and learn how to go fast. Make your mistakes.
And why do you think that after Greg Minnaar and Andrew Needling, there is no real big guy from South Africa on the circuit anymore? Considering that's such a great scene here and such great riding here.
Barriers to entry, I won't say enduro, but in some areas it makes more sense to. Here we don't have mountains and uplift, and even the shuttle places you can only usually shuttle on when there's an event going on. So these days, to be competitive on a downhill, you need to have you need to be able to ride at a certain age your big bike all the time.
Yeah.
And now you can ride your trail bike here. A lot of the tracks, even the downhill tracks, you're better, probably faster on an enduro bike. And then just exposure to international talent and the financial, like the exchange rate here, you multiply, although the exchange is like 20 to 1 to the euro or pound, the cost of living, it's more like, it's not 20 times more expensive, it's about 3 times more expensive in terms of what you're earning and what you're getting with that money you're earning. So you have to be already in mountain biking, you kind of need to be to some degree a rich kid, unless you've come up and you've developed and people have seen and helped you along the way, which is the ideal path. But already you need to have rich parents, grown up with it, and so a lot of the developing countries, that's why we see less of it. But then when you do, it's just harder. So you will just see less of it than you will see coming up from Europe and Canada and the US, We do have a healthy downhill race scene. The races sell out. We were actually getting full entries and yeah, so it's just keeping the focus, you know, and there's having a local industry to support it up to a certain level, and then they can, you know, graduate to an international stage. But then it's also, you've got to live in Europe. For any Aussie, Kiwi who have strong local support scenes and fairly strong currencies, you still got to live in Europe for 6 months. One, you can't even do that legally. You can't even be in Europe for more than 90 days on a South African or on most visas or passports. So, yeah, it's just lots of barriers to entry, you know. Surfers is different because you have some of the best waves in the world, so you can learn on them here, and you have a high talent pool. Skateboarding, you can do it anywhere. So if you get that talent, you can get onto the global stage. It's just geography and access and size of the industry. It's just a real expensive sport here, and so you have. I don't want to say rich kids aren't as tough as the tough. Well, if you grow up as tough, poor kid, as like a skater or a BMXer, you know, you don't need a lot of money, so you're tough. But as a downhiller, you've come from money, and you may be a bit softer and weaker, and you don't want to train as much because you don't have to. You've never had to work a job because your parents are rich, and that's the only way you can afford a downhill bike. Are you going to be the strongest, toughest competitor? Probably not. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. There's a lot of generalizations there.
Yeah, of course. But there's a lot of things make sense, obviously.
Yeah.
Of course, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap this up, I would like to ask you if, you know, young talents who would like to pursue a similar kind of career like you, what kind of advice would you give young creatives who want to make a career in the mountain bike or in the cycling industry?
Yeah. Well, in any industry, whatever they choose, is number one thing is passion, and to follow your passion. And that's twofold. Are you doing photography because you want to be involved in the World Cup scene, or are you passionate about photography and you're passionate about mountain bikes or action sports? And the action sports are so niche this day, you can't just be like a press photographer or a sports photographer and you shoot a bit of hockey and you shoot a bit of snowboarding. You know, there's some crossover sports for sure, or different seasons, different sports, but you got to be, these days, just like the pro racers, you got to be so singularly focused. The sports have all become so specialized and so niched that you got to dominate or be an expert in that niche. And as a result, you got to spend a lot of time in it. So if you don't have the passion, you're not going to want to spend that much time in it. If you don't have the passion for the craft and developing your photography and creatively, and so you basically got to have passion of photography and a passion of your subject that you're pursuing. In my case, mountain biking and mountain bike racing. So there's almost three passions there. Because if you're not into racing, you'd be more into shooting the slope style and rampage, and you know, like.
Well, which is then the pouring rain.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can just shoot when the sunrise or the sunset. It's way more. So yeah, I think just follow your passions and stick with it, and don't let it become a job. Have a job that's making you money. You don't need to make money from this. I probably made a loss for a year or two or three, or broke even, or only after year 3 to see that it could become a career, a job and a career, a part-time job and a hobby and a passion, and then what becomes a job is very different to what can become a career. I realized after 3, 4, 5 years that it could become a career, a long-term career. In the beginning was a job that would maybe work out, or a paid hobby that became a job, you know, so just slowly transition, you know. And it's tough these days because of this, you know, when we started, there was no such thing as like free social media, you know, people paying low prices. You just made magazines that had a rate and brands that had a rate for an ad, you know. You would get $2,000 for one photo as an ad, but then now I can get $20 100 times as an Instagram post, or $200 for one Instagram post. It just depends. There's so many. So it's, but at the same respect, there's so many more places your photographs can be seen. And there's so many ways to self-market or let people see your work for free. So there's a lot more ways of being noticed or marketing yourself for free. So, and technology is super easy. You don't need an expensive camera. You need 3 lenses and a basic good camera. Just like there's no shit bikes, there's kind of no shit cameras. You can get like a R6, which is not an entry-level camera by any means, but it's an affordable camera, and you don't have to get the 2.8 lenses. You can get the f4 lenses, and you can get used stuff, and you can get all the guys. So there's barriers to entry are as low as they can be, but for sure, you need to also be able to tell the whole story, and that might mean you might not need to do video and social media. Like there's a lot of other niches within this niche that you can find your place.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. There was a lot of information.
Hopefully, hopefully there was something there for somebody.
Definitely. Thank you so much, and
Thank you.
thanks for having me here in your beautiful house overlooking the ocean
With a broken door.
with a broken door,
Thanks
but
for
with
helping me fix
dolphins.
it.
Of course. Cool. Thank you.
All right, sweet.
Movement. Branding for the bike industry is an Adlib Studio creation. Content direction and production, Tim Thiel. Sound, music and edit, Niklas Butzke. Artwork, Marius Burgmann. New episodes appear regularly, irregularly on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music and YouTube. If you like the episode, then please consider following the Movement Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. If you have any further questions and comments, use the comment feature below this episode or go to adlibs.io and send us a message. Thanks for listening.